The GTA clone is back in the news, and no, I am not talking about Paradise. It's 171, the Brazilian GTA that's just got a new release date. The game's been MIA from the market since its last update a few months back. And to be honest, people were worried that the devs had bolted after raking millions in Brazilian reais, which they raised from not one but two huge Kickstarter campaigns over the years. For those who have absolutely no idea what I am talking about here, let me give you a quick background of this GTA clone. So 171 is basically a GTA-style open-world action-adventure game that's being developed by a very small team of 7, and apparently non-professional video game developers based in Brazil, who decided that their very first game would be a competitor to the world's most popular video game of all time, and probably the most expensive video game in the history of mankind, GTA 6. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the guys behind 171, Betagames Group. But before you guys run off to call this game absolute bullshit, this game is actually legit. In fact, you can play this game right now as it's already out on Steam in early access. And well, I played this game almost 2 years ago when it first came out, and to be honest, it was actually pretty fun. Sure, it was bugged up and nowhere near a finished product, but it was playable. However, a lot of people had their doubts about the game from the very beginning. Many even called it a total scam, an asset flip, claiming the developers were just out to grab donations without delivering anything real. And to be honest, they had their reasons for that, because apparently most, if not all of the game was made using pre-made assets that the developers bought from the Unreal marketplace. We're talking vehicles, character animations, and walking systems, weapons, animals, and even the vegetation, which leaves, well, just the map. Now, as someone who knows a bit about game development, I could tell you there's nothing wrong with using pre-made assets, especially for a small or micro studio like BGG. But that's not really the problem here, it's the fact that nowhere in their crowdfunding Kickstarters did they make it clear to the backers that they were just going to purchase the assets instead of making the game mechanics from scratch, which was heavily implied in their goals. Because if you look at the amount of money they raised in their first Kickstarter campaign that started back in 2018, it comes to almost $12,906 US, and for $11,000, their goal was to create a map, character movement and driving system, some clothing customizations, 10 cars, a couple of weapons, NPC interaction system, and the cops, of course. But even at that time, many of these goals were either already fulfilled, like the character movement system, for which they used Unreal's very own locomotion system, the driving mechanics, and they also had most of the map ready that we now see in the early access version. If we take a closer look at the second tier of their goals, they included a day and night system, along with a few other features, and for this, they were asking for an additional $5,100. But in reality, they just bought the Ultra Dynamic Sky asset from the Unreal Marketplace for $40, a tool that already handles day-night cycles, clouds, and even rain. Naturally, this didn't sit well with many fans and backers, but that's just one side of the story, the bad side, because there's a good side to it too, and let me tell you how. BGG isn't a big game studio. In fact, they are just 7 game developers with very, very high ambitions who've been grinding hard for the last decade or so. And unlike Rockstar, they are not sitting on billions of dollars. And even if we take all that amount they've raised through their 2 Kickstarter campaigns, which is roughly $50,000, that's nowhere near enough to fairly compensate 7 people who've been working on this game for years. They're still learning the ins and outs of game development, putting in who knows how many hours a day, figuring things out as they go. Should they have been more transparent with their backers? Absolutely. But it seems like people are willing to give them a second chance, and honestly, so am I. Especially now that they've announced that the final version of the game is expected to come out next year. They've also decided to port the whole game over to Unreal Engine 5 to make it future-proof and be able to meet the high expectations that the fans have already set, especially since 171 is trying to portray itself as GTA's competitor. This means most of what we see in the early access version available on Steam is going to be completely revamped. They've promised to add way more content to make the game feel worth it, including a central campaign with a proper story, more side missions, random events, and way better gameplay mechanics. And to be more transparent, after the whole asset flip drama, they're trying to be more forthcoming with their fans. They've even shared with us some images directly from the final version of the game, and they look really good. I mean, we already know what Unreal Engine 5 is capable of, so it doesn't surprise surprise me that much, but if that's how the game is going to end up looking, I will surely be surprised. Each of these images seem to be inspired by some famous landmark in Brazil. Like this one here, it looks very similar to the Independence Museum in São Paulo, but the detail here is insane. Sure, the vegetation could use a bit more polish, but the building itself, the reflection in water, and judging by those NPCs up there on the stairs, it might even be possible to get inside the building. You might have already noticed that chopper in the air. It could mean we'll see police or news choppers flying around as well. Now look at this next image, guys. It's got me really excited, because back when I played the game a couple of years ago, I never saw anything like this. It's a whole new area packed with wilderness and mountains, and it looks stunning. You can see these treks through the mountains, a train traveling on the railway track, and there's a bridge crossing over that train. And looking at that train, I can't help but think about Smoke yelling in my ear,
"All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ."
Maybe we could see some similar missions in 171? After all, GTA is a huge inspiration for this game, so why not? But guys, if we believe these images really show the final game, we are looking at totally different biomes and settings that is sure to make the map more diverse and pretty huge in size. We can even spot wildlife there, which I'm almost certain they'll include. Otherwise, it would just feel like an empty space. The whole area closely resembles the coastal regions of São Paulo. Speaking of which, they've even added this beach to the game. Just look at the level of detail. You can see people chatting, a guy walking his dog, vendors running small stalls, likely selling snacks, and of course people lounging on the beach and sunbathing. One thing worth noting is that every character looks unique. Some are tall, some short, some skinny, and others chubby. This level of NPC diversity is something fans have been hoping to see in GTA for a long time. If you look closely, you can spot seagulls, or maybe pigeons on the ground, suggesting they might actually wander around instead of just hovering in the sky like in most games. There's even a boat in the background, which we might actually get to ride. The beach itself is scattered with bits of trash and empty bottles, adding a realistic touch. Of course, we can't expect everything to look exactly like this in the final version, but these images clearly highlight what the devs are aiming for with this game. We also saw another museum in the images shared by the devs, surrounded by lush vegetation and street-facing security cameras. This one is inspired by a real-world landmark in Brazil, the São Paulo Museum of Art. Whether or not these buildings will be explorable remains to be seen, but even if they're not, pulling off this level of detail is a huge accomplishment for a small studio like this. Based on what I've seen in these images and during my early access playthrough, it's clear the devs are expanding the world of 171 beyond just urban environments. They're adding underdeveloped neighborhoods, scenic mountain ranges, and relaxing beachside locations, which all signal real progress. That said, let's not get too carried away just yet. Even the biggest studios have been known to overpromise and underdeliver, leaving us with buggy, glitch-filled messes instead of the polished experiences they hyped. Speaking of studio size, the devs have also said that they aim to expand not just the content in 171, but the whole studio itself. They are hiring more people, setting a legal team, expanding their internal operations, and investing in some high-tech enterprise tools that will allow them to keep the game optimized, and even let them roll out DLCs and updates more efficiently after the launch. It looks like they've realized that in order to really deliver the product they've been promising players for years now, they need to step up and get more help from other professionals. And honestly, that's great news for us gamers, because more competition in the industry is always a win for us. I'm sure you're just as excited as I am, and probably have just as many questions and concerns, but the good news is, we won't have to wait too long. The developers have announced a release window for this game, which is 2025. Now I know what you're thinking. Releasing in the same year as GTA 6 sounds like a risky move, almost like a death wish, but hear me out. If they manage to release 171 before GTA 6, I'm confident it'll grab massive attention and draw players in. The GTA hype is already through the roof, and curiosity alone could push fans to check out this game while they wait. Of course, this is an ambitious project, and delays are always possible, but in this case, timing will be everything. If the game launches after GTA 6, it risks being completely overshadowed, buried like so many other games that dared to share a release window with Rockstar's next big title, so the stakes couldn't be be higher. The devs have definitely made their fair share of mistakes, but they're working hard to rebuild trust with their fans by being more transparent and showcasing the progress they've made. It seems like people are willing to give them a second chance, and many are genuinely excited to play this game ahead of GTA 6's release. There's no doubt the game has potential. If those images are anything to go by, we could be looking at a solid action-adventure game that stands out on its own. Not just as a GTA clone or Brazilian GTA, but as a game with its own unique identity and an original story. What do you think about this game? Personally, I feel if they manage to release it in the next few months or even in the first half of 2025, it could grab a lot of attention, but also face a fair share of criticism. Either way, I'm excited to see how 171 continues to evolve, and I'll be sure to keep you updated.